Tonight, teachers on strike. The union says 50,000 staff at the capital schools walked out today in a protest over pay and conditions, but at what cost to parents and pupils?
Whether you've got kids or not, you should want our children to be well educated when they leave school.
Also ahead on what's being called Walkout Wednesday, commuters face yet more train strikes with two of London's biggest stations closed. Either Tate Modern's viewing platform has been ruled a nuisance to its neighbours, and fired by Lord Sugar but drumming up some real trade on TikTok, Sally catches up with Apprentice star Thomas Skinner. Good evening. Teaching strikes have hit London harder than any other part of the country. Almost 3/4 of all schools in the capital were predicted to close or partially close, causing a headache for parents, many who've had to stay at home too. According to unions, 50,000 teachers across the capital walked out today. Some were joined by parents and children on a huge march at Whitehall, but with more possible strikes on the way. For how long will that support last? Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Across London, classrooms were deserted. Many schools, like this one in Tulse Hill, were forced to close. Others imposed restrictions on who could come in. Instead of the noisy bustle of children in playgrounds, there was silence.
Unfortunately, we have had to close the school completely to children today because the vast majority of our teachers have taken industrial action and striking today.
Not far away, the leader of the Teachers' Union arrived to show her support for strikers at Bishop Thomas Grant Secondary.
Whether you've got kids or not, you should want our children to be well educated when they leave school. I think that's going to become a worse and worse problem if we don't sort it out now.
Across South London in Wandsworth, Keaton, a sixth former, was studying in the kitchen instead of the classroom. But it's not a novelty.
That's something that I think I've learned to do because of COVID, because of online learning, where we didn't have that rigid schedule and we were sort of given that opportunity. I think it was an opportunity to learn how to manage our own times, how to manage our own time effectively.
But it wasn't just schools where the doors were closed. Many of London's railway stations also shut up shop for the day as a strike by the train drivers' union ASLEF brought commuter lines to a standstill. Thanks to lessons learned from COVID, many commuters find it easy to switch to home working during a train strike. But working from home during a teacher's strike is another matter. Juggling childcare and doing a day's work is a challenge. In Walthamstow, some parents chose to take advantage of a local play centre to give their children something to do.
They're working from home, but needless to say, you can't work from home and have two active children. So our little sister's still at the childminder, but obviously she needed help. So this morning we're going to do this.
Luckily I do shift work, so today was one of my days off anyway, so it hasn't been too much change in the routine.
We're lucky that we've got friends whose children are at the same school, they live really nearby, so we're basically dividing it up between ourselves and taking shifts.
In central London, many teachers joined a march organised by the TUC in support of unions demanding above-inflation pay rises.
That is not on the table. We cannot risk fueling inflation. We've said very much we take this seriously and we will halve inflation this year. We need to get rid of the problem of inflation for everybody, not just have some people who get above inflation pay rises.
This was the biggest day of coordinated strikes in a long time. It may not be the last. Simon Harris, ITV News, Walthamstow.
I'm joined now by Alex Kenny from the National Education Union, who organised the rally at Whitehall that we saw in Simon's report. Alex, thank you so much for joining me this evening. You teach at a secondary school in Tower Hamlets, don't you? What are your personal motivations for striking today?
My personal motivations for striking, and like other colleagues across London, we're fed up. We're fed up of being underpaid and undervalued by this government. I've seen my pay decrease in value by almost 20% since 2010. And even someone as experienced as me is struggling to pay bills with that. But it's the young teachers, in a way, that I was on strike for, because younger teachers in London can't afford to buy houses, they can't afford to pay off their student loans. They're really struggling and they're leaving London in large numbers.
It's over pay, it's over conditions as well. Right now, the government doesn't seem to be budging on that above inflation a pay offer. They would also point to an 8.1% pay rise for new starters that you mentioned, £2 billion pledged for the education budget. Your response to that then?
It's about pay, but it's also about the impact of lower pay on recruitment and retention. So it's about school funding. We were joined today in London by Paul Whiteman from the National Association of Head Teachers, who was making the point with us, was that unless the government invests in its teaching force and its support staff, schools will struggle to recruit. I know schools in Tower Hamlets that have been advertising for posts like head of music, head of French for 18 months and can't find anyone. I know primary schools in Tower Hamlets that have had to cut back on the number of TAs, extracurricular activities, all these things that independent schools get.
But how much is that down to the actual budgets of the schools themselves, or how much is it down to central government?
It's down to central government. It's down to central government not funding the pay rise that we did get this year. We got a 5% pay rise. It wasn't fully funded. That means schools have had to put more money into paying that bill and then had to cut back on other clubs. So schools in Tower Hamlets and other places in London are going without all the richness, the extracurricular trips, all kinds of things, lack of TAs. For special needs children, it's a crisis.
There was a lot of support that we saw on that rally, particularly at Whitehall today. We did see parents there, we saw children there. Are you worried, though, that support might dwindle if you do carry out more strikes? Because, you know, parents are having to make difficult decisions, they're having to take unpaid leave. It's last-minute notice as well, because a lot of your colleagues didn't tell the schools until early this morning that they were actually going to strike, didn't they?
Schools were told that there was going to be a strike 2 weeks ago.
But a lot of the schools weren't told by the individuals until this morning.
We gave every school, and we've worked very closely with heads in London, I must say, and in Tower Hamlets, our heads have been hugely supportive. We're working together on this. We gave schools the numbers of NEU members and said, these number will be on strike. If anyone's not going to be on strike, they will tell you. On the parent issue, what we'll say is, today was the national strike. There are no more strikes planned in England for 4 weeks.
OK.
That's 4 weeks.
But after that 4-week period, will there be more?
That's 4 weeks in which Gillian Keegan can negotiate with us, come with an offer that we can put to members and resolve the dispute. It's also 4 weeks in which we're going to begin the biggest parental engagement exercise we've ever undertaken. We will be at school gates, we will be in local communities, talking to them about funding, talking about the issues we raised today, and we think we can build on that support.
Well, Alex, maybe we'll be speaking to you in 4 weeks' time, but until then, thank you.
I hope not.
Thank you.
I really hope not.
We hope not as well. Alex, thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you. Well, rail strikes caused major London train stations to close today. Victoria and London Bridge both shut their doors. Carolyn Sim is at London Bridge for us right now. Carolyn, looks pretty empty behind you.
Yeah, from where I'm standing, this is a stark difference to those protest demonstrations happening in the capital today. It's dead silent here. The station is closed, and this is the reality for commuters, of course. No Southern, South Eastern or Thameslink trains are running today at all, and that's because of the train strike by train drivers from the ASLEF union. Now, Londoners we spoke to tonight say they do still have sympathy with the train drivers, but they want this dispute resolved as soon as possible.
I do support them, but my issue is that it affects me and it doesn't really affect the people that are causing these strikes. So they need to think about the working class population, because I am late to work and I can lose my job, whereas they are striking and they're keeping their jobs.
I think they should just let everyone free for free, because then, you know, that helps us and also it helps train drivers too. So it's like the company that's losing out rather than like everyone else involved.
I do sympathise with them, and I feel like the government really needs to do something about it.
Well, ASLEF say negotiations to resolve this dispute have actually gone backwards. Last month they rejected an offer which included an 8% pay rise over 2 years, saying that the conditions attached to that offer were unworkable. Now, in a separate dispute with the RMT union representing signalling workers and maintenance workers, they've been offered a new offer from Network Rail tonight, which includes at least a 9% pay rise over 2 years and improvements to working conditions like a 35-hour week for everyone. They are now considering that offer. Train drivers, though, still aren't happy, and they're planning to stage another 24-hour walkout this Friday. All right, Carolyn at London Bridge, thank you.
Some other news now. 2 men have been jailed for life for murdering a 71-year-old businesswoman in an attempt to steal her life savings. Louise Cam was strangled with a hairdryer cord and dumped in a wheelie bin after being lured to a 3-bedroom house she owned in Barnet in July 2021. Chef Kuzai Al-Jundi, who's 25, and 28-year-old delivery driver Mohammed El Aboud have each been jailed for at least 35 years. The judge called them deceitful and calculating.
It is clear how much Louise was loved and admired by her family and her friends. A woman of 71 who loved and cared for her sons, Richard and Gregory, suffered brutal injuries at your hands, and then with complete disregard, you sought to dispose of her remains.
Now they come to us at our time of need, but London ambulance staff have been facing an increasing number of assaults from the very patients they are trying to help. Helen Keenan is here with more on this, and it's really shocking, isn't it? You've got some figures for us, haven't you?
Yes, and they make for pretty grim reading, to be honest. So these figures are just for 2022. There were around 600 reports of verbal abuse to London ambulance staff, over 500 physical assaults, and perhaps most shockingly, almost 50 cases of sexual assaults. Now, we've been hearing from ambulance crews who've shared that experience with us. One even told me today that he'd been threatened with a knife, and one paramedic has come out and bravely shared her experience with what has happened to her, and just to warn you that it does include some graphic detail. She's calling the police to tell them she's been sexually assaulted. This footage recording the aftermath of the attack from a patient she'd been trying to care for. Did it feel strange saying those words?
Yeah, really, really weird. I've been verbally abused a few times, but not to the extent where somebody would physically put their hands on you. Some of my colleagues have been spat at before, some colleagues have been kicked and sort of punched.
Warning, CCTV recording in operation.
Panic buttons like these are fitted in the ambulance. Charlotte couldn't reach it though.
He was making sort of suggested comments to me and my crewmate. Then he went and grabbed my crotch. Tried to do it again for a second time, but I managed to jump out of the way. Then he exposed himself, and he was laughing about the situation. So at that point, we sort of feared for our safety, and we called for police backup.
And how are you feeling in that moment?
Very vulnerable, quite disgusted as well. The fact that, you know, somebody who you're trying to help would turn around and insult you in that manner.
Sadly, Charlotte's story isn't as rare as you might think. There were around 50 sexual assaults on London ambulance workers just last year.
That's not acceptable to me, it's not acceptable to our organisation, and it shouldn't be acceptable to the public.
Are London ambulance workers safe?
So yes, I think they are safe, but more always needs to be done. We have to hold ourselves to account for our behaviour. It's just not acceptable to assault emergency workers who are trying to help you.
You're obviously given anonymity because you are a sexual assault victim. You've decided to waive that. Why have you decided to do that?
I just want to encourage other people to come forwards as well. I mean, it's not okay, it's not right.
At the time of her attack, she'd only been qualified for a year. It's not put her off the job, but it has made her more wary of what she could encounter. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Well, 2 paramedics escaped serious injury last night after their ambulance rolled after hitting a bus in Baker Street. They were responding to an emergency call but ended up being at the centre of their own emergency. You can see here the crew climbing out the side of the overturned vehicle. London Ambulance say everyone involved was taken to hospital for checks. Jaden Francois Esprit was a trainee firefighter at Wembley Station when he took his own life just 3 weeks after his 21st birthday. Jaden's death, in part, triggered a damning report which concluded that the London Fire Brigade is institutionally racist. Today's mother was at City Hall to hear the Commissioner face questions over what went wrong. Rags Martel reports.
He was proud to become a firefighter, but for Jaden Francois Esprit, joining the service led him to take his own life.
How much do you blame the London Fire Brigade for your son's death? I think they are totally to blame, and there are people in the London Fire Brigade that say they are to blame as well. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind at all that they are responsible.
Sorry, distracting you.
There were smiles at the beginning of his career,
Yes, Jaden.
but he was soon subject to racism and bullying.
There was a lot of underhand treatment, even down to his food. So Jaden was really proud of his culture, and he was really proud that he was able to make, chicken rice, rice and peas and chicken and take it to work. And there's reports as well that they would take the mickey out of his food. And so he stopped taking him food. And, you've got a young 20-year-old turning up, potentially go out and save lives, and he's not eating at work, and nobody thought to ask him why he wasn't eating at work.
Jaden's death in 2020 led to a review of the culture inside the London Fire Brigade. The report found thousands have suffered similar incidents of racism and sexism, including men huddled around screens watching pornography, and a black firefighter confronted with a noose above his locker.
Thank you, Chair.
This afternoon, the report findings were questioned at City Hall, which began with an apology from the London Fire Brigade.
And it is not lost on me that the family of Jaden is sitting here. What I can say to you, Linda, and I will put it in writing, we will get it right, is I can only apologise to you and your family. The London Fire Brigade let you, your son, down in almost every aspect. And seeing you here, I can only apologise to you now for the public record and hope that this report and the action we will take subsequent stand as some sort of recompense for the terrible loss you have endured.
Alongside the Commissioner, the report author.
Is this just a London Fire Brigade problem?
No, this is a societal problem. And not only do I hear from fire services, we've heard from police services, haven't we? We've heard about misogyny in other sectors of society. But we have to work in one institution at a time.
Do you have confidence that the London Fire Brigade will change?
I would like to hope that they can change, but I don't think they're going far enough.
Change has been promised, but all of this is too late for Jaden. Rags Martel, ITV News, City Hall.
Still to come, Sally meets Apprentice star Thomas Skinner. Before that, to the victory for 4 flat owners who've won a Supreme Court battle against Tate Modern to stop visitors to the gallery from looking into their homes. Daniel Henry's been following this. And Daniel, talk us through what happened. It sounds like potentially could have a big impact on visitors there.
That's right, Lucrezia. There are millions of people who come to the Tate Modern hoping to get up onto that viewing platform to get that incredible shot that you get over the Millennium Bridge, gives you that direct line towards St Paul's Cathedral. But opposite that viewing platform is a block of flats, and the people who live there say that when people come up to that viewing platform and peer into their properties, they are invading their privacy. And the judge today agreed with them and said that, you know what, you're right. So there's a lawyer that I've been speaking to today. He was explaining to me why this case is unlikely to lead to a series of copycat claims.
We've got over 500,000 people visiting the viewing platform every year, looking into these flats from about 30 or so metres away. That's 1,600 people a day on a rough calculation. It's a very extreme case. So I think the facts of it are so extreme that mean the floodgates will not open, and it's not going to affect development in London.
So, Daniel, what happens to the platform now?
Well, the platform's closed at the moment, and the High Court will have the next decision about if it stays that way. So that's what's happening with the platform right now. The judge in their final statement was saying that people feel overlooked in those flats, and that's why he decided to side with them today. But I suppose they're not the only people in London who feel that way. It's just that the people in those flats had the money to challenge their privacy in court.
All right, Daniel, at the Tate Modern, thank you. Now, he might have been fired by Lord Sugar, but Apprentice star Thomas Skinner isn't letting disappointment get the better of him. Sally, you went to meet him earlier today, and he's causing quite a stir on social media, isn't he?
He is. Oh, Lucrezia, this guy is just such a tonic. He's a diamond, he really is. He has been posting these videos, which everyone has fallen in love with, where he posts these enormous breakfasts, which aren't really breakfasts, and then does these motivational videos, and everyone seems to be loving him. Honestly, I think you'll fall in love with him as well. Let's take a little look.
Have a blinder, smash it up. Abash, abash, abash.
A shrinking violet, Tommy Skinner is not. From Dino's Cafe in Leighton, he's made a name for himself, eating enormous breakfasts that would fill most of us up all day. But not Tommy.
Do you eat much else after that?
I don't eat until about 2 o'clock, I reckon. And it won't be something like sausage, mash and beans.
Just something small.
Yeah. I mean, dinner a bit smaller, like just a cottage pie on its own, no veg.
Tommy first rose to fame on The Apprentice a few years ago, until Alan Sugar fired him.
When he fired me, he did say, he went, if I was at war and I was in the trenches, I wouldn't want any use by my side, I'd want him.
Oh.
And he said, and I'm really sad to do this, but you're rubbish, so you're fired. Because we're not at war.
When he's not here, Tommy is also a market trader.
And what are your favourite market calls? What are the best ones?
I say it every morning, I do. I go, good morning, you lovely people. We're going to sell on today. It's all half price, but twice as nice. Have a look. Come on. We're all cheap down here.
But without his accent, it's a tough gig.
Just say, good morning, you lovely people.
Good morning, you lovely people. Sound like I'm about to go the West End stage.
Showing ya.
But his social media posts in Dino's are also loved for their motivational elements.
So have a great day, carry on loving life and stay safe. Abash.
They've really brought him into the public eye, as the cafe's Ernie has witnessed.
I've had a guy come from Melbourne, Australia. I mean, unbelievable. No. Yeah, he was in London, but he'd seen Tommy on his Instagram in Melbourne. And he said that all his friends follow Tom. And he walked through the door and he went, wow, Dino's Cafe.
But my favourite bit is what he then ate.
He had a sunshine curry as well. He said, I've got to have some. He said, I've got to have some. What Tommy? I said, well, he has a sunshine curry. He said, I'll have one.
What is a sunshine curry?
Well, we do a curry and then rice around the edge, and then we put chips all around the edge. It looks like the sun.
And here it is, genius. Speaking of sunshine, I'd better go, but I'll give the last word to Dino.
All right, you lovely people, if you want the best bit of grub for breakfast, get yourself down to Dino's Cafe in Leighton.
Abash! I missed it. Cheers.
Oh, Sally, your attempt at a Cockney accent, woeful, I have to say. Bad. Unbelievable. Listen, you're obviously a fan of Tommy. Are you a fan of Beyonce? Because I've got some news. Listen to this. She's only just announced her first solo world tour in over 6 years. It's great news for Tottenham. The tour will include back-to-back dates at the Spurs Stadium at the end of May.
Hooray!
Blimey, by then it's going to be a bit warmer, isn't it? May, isn't it? But I feel like now we're in February, things are picking up, right?
Well, they are. Would you like a little quiz?
I wouldn't, but go on then.
Oh, I always do this to you. No one else gets one, but you always get one. Special one. So, provisional stats for January are in for London.
OK.
Was it warmer or colder than average?
Colder.
No, slightly warmer. Was it wetter or drier than average?
Wetter.
Congratulations, 7% wetter. And finally, was it sunnier or less sunny than average?
Sunnier.
Yes, well done. 2 out of 3.
Right?
18% sunnier, in fact, my friends. So, you know, we're doing OK. And hopefully, nice one, there'll be a little bit more sunshine tomorrow. Let's take a look.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Well, if you've got a cat, probably best that it looks away now for fear of temptation, because isn't that just gorgeous, that little mouse? Probably enjoying the slightly less chilly temperatures we've got. For the rest of the week, it's pretty dry. Again, there's some bright or sunny spells, but still a fair bit of cloud around. And yes, it is a bit milder, but as I found out to my cost today, if you are in that breeze and out of the sunshine and not wearing a thick enough coat, it is still feeling pretty cold. Now, what's going on? Well, we have got fronts trying to make their way down from the north, but by the time they reach us, they're quite weak and mostly just coming in the form of cloud. We've got high pressure over us and that's keeping our conditions fairly settled, but it's going to get a bit colder as we go through the weekend into the start of next week. So let's take a look at the detail for tonight. Outside, a fair bit of cloud around, some clear spells, mostly dry, maybe the odd little spot of rain. A bit breezy overnight again, and that'll probably stop those temperatures going too cold, down to around the mid-single figures. So a touch up on last night, still fairly fresh as we head into Thursday. And it's quite a similar day to today. So you've got that cloud, pretty dry again. The odd shower, not many, and at times that sunshine breaking through the cloud to give some brighter conditions. Our temperatures are up a tiny amount, so highs of 11 to 12 tomorrow. That's again above average, but again we have got a little bit of a breeze, making things feel a bit cooler when you're out of the sunshine. If you've got plans for tomorrow night, staying dry, in fact not a huge amount of change, some clear spells, but also still a fair bit of cloud in the mix. So the outlook, well, plenty of calm conditions, a bit cloudy on Saturday, and you can see those temperatures coming down through the weekend. That's the full forecast for now.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
And finally tonight, South Londoners are being urged to help provide homes for Ukrainian refugees. The charity Reset has told ITV News London it has around 100 trained hosts to take them in, yet there are more than 3,000 individuals and families still in need of a home. Our senior correspondent Ronke Phillips met one young man who has been lucky enough to find a host family.
So, how are you today? How's it going? What's the news?
I have a very big television team on my back, as you can see.
Dmytro Danchuk has been taking English lessons every day since he arrived in London to stay with his hosts in Greenwich.
What about grocery shops, I don't know, supermarkets, something like that?
I have a very nice supermarket right near my building. So
His first ever trip abroad, Dmytro travelled from his home in war-torn Kyiv, leaving behind his mother, stepfather, grandparents and friends. And he made the move 2 weeks before his 22nd birthday, and so celebrated with his hosts and a social worker.
And it was so weird because, you know, like birthday, I always celebrated birthday with my friends, with my family. And now I celebrate birthday with two guys that I know like 1 week and social worker from Greenwich comes. Very strange.
Dmytro was in Ukraine when the war first broke out and has vivid memories of the first Russian missiles flying above the city.
I watched in the sky and Russian missile was right above me.
You hear that noise and then the delay. And
I see it. It was like right above me. And then this was the first rocket that hit the Kyiv city center on Lukyanivka.
Dmytro's a really easy person to get along with.
Just over 17,000 households have taken in Ukrainian refugees in London. Dmytro lives with this couple in Greenwich who decided they wanted to help when they saw how desperate the situation was.
Well, like most people, we were getting really angry and upset seeing what was going on in Ukraine, but we realised that achieved nothing. So we looked at ways at supporting or at hosting refugees and decided that the charity route, like the one that Reset provides, was the best way to proceed.
The charity the couple used was set up with a specific goal of settling refugees into communities. And as the war in the Ukraine continues, so does the need for more hosts.
We have over 3,000 refugee families still looking for safety in the UK and fewer than 100 hosts at any one time.
Teach us later what that means.
Dmytro now has a job and is hoping he'll soon be able to rent a flat of his own. But he says he'll always stay in touch with his hosts, who for him are now more of a second family. Ronke Phillips, ITV News.
And that is it for now. We're back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Coming up, Mary with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, bye-bye.